But we start tonight with the big news, a landmark ruling from the United States Supreme Court divided 6-3 along ideological lines. The justices say a president now has, quote, absolute immunity from prosecution when it comes to so-called official acts. The interpretation, of course, of what constitutes an official act is likely to be further determined by the courts. Former President Trump has long argued in favor of presidential power.
If a president doesn't have full immunity, you really don't have a president.
We start our coverage tonight with a powerhouse group, CBS News' chief legal correspondent, Jan Crawford, and CBS News' correspondent on Capitol Hill, and one of the great legal minds at CBS News, Scott MacFarlane. Great to have both of you here. Let's really this is what a moment. You have the Supreme Court weighing in on presidential power. And let's pull up the ruling. We have 6 justices ruling in favor, the majority opinion. You have 3 in dissent. Jan, the dissent, though, struck me as really something that was outside of the norm we see from the Supreme Court.
Yeah, I mean, it was written by Justice Sonia Sotomayor on behalf of the 3 liberals, obviously, as you said, a deeply divided court along ideological lines, and it was unusually sharp and fierce. I mean, with fear for our democracy, I dissent. I've never seen a justice do anything like that in a Supreme Court opinion, a dissent. And, you know, she got the other 2 liberals to join. I thought it was also interesting that the Chief Justice, who wrote the majority opinion, had some unusually sharp responses to her dissent, accusing the dissents of fear-mongering, you know, of these extreme hypotheticals and not really based on any kind of actual reasoning. So this kind of back and forth between the justices on this issue, I think, really shows the stark divide on this court right now.
Help us understand how significant that is, to have not only the charged language we saw in the dissent raising concerns about American democracy, but also to have the Chief Justice, who you've covered so deeply, written about extensively, to have him push back against them, to throw cold water on their arguments. What kind of a moment is this for the court in terms of how it sees itself, how they talk amongst each other, and its own integrity with the public?
You know, this is a deeply divided court. We've seen that throughout this term on a number of issues. In fact, going back to the Dobbs decision 2 years ago that overturned Roe versus Wade, that you have these 6 conservatives who are willing to take kind of bold new areas of the law. And this is an issue that John Roberts, who worked in the executive branch along with 4 other justices over the years before they became justices, does care deeply about the issue of executive power. And he believes, and I'm not surprised at all that he wrote this decision, he's written all of the kind of executive power decisions, he believes in a very robust form of executive power. And this decision today, as the court noted, goes well beyond Trump. Unlike the political branches, the court said today, they're not just concerned with the issue right in front of them, the existing situation, the peculiar moment in time that we're in. They have to think about the future presidents. And there was a real concern on this court that without some kind of restraint, without some kind of immunity, that future presidents could face routine prosecutions when someone disagreed with their policies, whether it's immigration or whatever. And in fact, Trump teed that up at the debate. When he raised the prospect that, you know, President Biden, if he's out of office, could be prosecuted for his immigration policy. So you have this back and forth, though, I mean, where you have, you know, Justice Sotomayor saying that now, you know, the president is basically a king above the law. Very, very bitter disputes among these justices. It's the last day of the term, so they're all going to get out of town, and they'll be back the first, you know, last week of September. We'll see if that tends to cool off some of the tempers we see on display.
The last day of the term, by no means the last word. Let's pull up former President Trump's response on social media. He said, quote, in all caps, big win for our Constitution and democracy. Proud to be an American. So he's celebrating today, Scott. You have covered, though, the January 6th possible trial about the former president's conduct, along with many other January 6 cases. So the president's in a good mood based on that Truth Social posting. But let's bring up a photo of Judge Tanya Chutkan, the U.S. District Court judge in Washington, D.C. She is overseeing the January 6 case, appointed by President Obama, former trial attorney and supervisor. Scott, what is her role now in determining whether Trump will face a trial on January 6th or not before November 6th?
The case is now back in her hands, but how much of the case remains to be seen. This case has been with her since August 2023. She was randomly assigned this case and moved swiftly through the opening weeks of it and set a trial date for March 4th, you remember. Then when the appeals moved their way to the appeals court and ultimately to the Supreme Court, everything froze in place on February 6th. It's now unfrozen, but instead of being stuck in the mud, it's like stuck in this quicksand, which is going to suck down all the bandwidth of this court. They may have to litigate all kinds of issues to keep this prosecution alive. If it can stay alive, all of that eliminates the prospect of having a trial before November 5th. A pre-election trial was already a long shot.
There's no shot?
I don't see any path forward with any challenge from the former president to the case itself and the indictment. The indictment may have to be slimmed down, maybe not. If so, if it's not going to be slimmed down, it's going to have to be litigated. Does this fall as an official act or an unofficial act? It's going to require hearings. It's going to give Donald Trump.
How quickly could Special Counsel Jack Smith act to try to make it happen?
It could be a matter of days until he does something to push forward the case. He may be trying to figure out exactly what to do based on the trajectory of that ruling from the Supreme Court. But it was already a long shot to get this thing to trial because Judge Chutkan, Bob, had already told the parties you get 2 or 3 months to get ready for trial, notwithstanding anything coming out of the appeals court of the Supreme Court. You need time to get ready for trial, and this case is frozen. So if it came back to her unblemished today, she would still give the parties till September or October, and it's difficult to get a trial in by November 5th. Now there's a complicating factor, if not an infinite number of complicating factors. This thing is going to fall into a multi-month, if not multi-year path.
And really quickly, Jan, did the majority opinion today and any of the justices question the credibility of the special counsel?
Yeah, Justice Thomas, I think, wrote a real clear roadmap and a concurring opinion that I think we're going to see used in the documents case in Florida. That was not an issue directly raised in the Supreme Court in this case. That was directly raised in that classified documents case. And Judge Cannon is now considering that. And Justice Thomas has written what I believe is an opinion that she may well embrace, or at least see it as a roadmap, which would mean that the special counsel was appointed potentially was unconstitutional.
A lot of serious issues at play here and unpredictable moment politically and legally. Jan Crawford and Scott MacFarlane, thank you very much for your reporting. We appreciate it.